It's been a minute, so let's just jump right into it. I haven't done any filming now since the probably almost the end of April, and it is almost like it's May 28th today. So, a big reason for that is I was in my I was writing exams, then I did my in-person stuff, which was basically 2 weeks. And now I've been on 2 weeks of holidays, and a lot of my holidays have been just basically me trying to recover from basically what's been nonstop since, and like crazy nonstop since I would say mid March. So before I get into any extra details, let's go throughout that footage and I'll formally end off the year. We'll then come back and I'm gonna end with my thoughts in a little bit of a Q&A style and self-reflection. See you at the end. I actually do have a little bit of time to vlog this morning. It is Tuesday, April 15th. I don't have any class this morning, so I'm going to take advantage of this and do a little bit of studying. Actually, if I play my cards right, I could probably get in about 6 or 7 hours today. I'm trying to get through the last few learning outcomes for my non-prescription products class. I have my last open book tomorrow for that one. The reason why I don't have any classes is because the one class we're supposed to have at 8 o'clock this morning, we're finished all the lecture material. So don't have that today. I do still actually have some peer evaluations I have to do, but if I can do those later this evening, that will be fine. So yeah, it's kind of that time of the year again where classes are sort of ending and then I have more time to be able to study for finals. Also, I apologize if my hair is a little wacky. I actually got in a workout this morning and then had a quick shower, so my hair will be a little wet and a little out of place probably for the morning. I don't like to put it up because, like, when I put it up when it's wet, it gets really, really itchy. I've been really getting into yin yoga, which has been keeping me grounded and at least for the most part has been definitely helping with stress and with energetics and all of that. It's been so nice to have like a more movement practice. It's also at the same time helping me to get my strength up. I have tried power yoga and I've tried the yin yoga, and I like the yin yoga a lot more because it's a little bit less of that like on my hands and knees kind of stuff, and it's more stretching, which, and it's also like a meditation practice at the same time. This is my papers so far for LO5 to 9. What is it? LO5 to 9? Yeah, I think it is LO5 to LO9 for non-prescription products. Let's see, I can look at the front page. Yes, 5 to 9. And I've gotten to, what did I get to last night? I got to 8.3 last night. I had finished up to the end of LO7 for the quiz yesterday so that I could use these notes if I needed to. I also had my combined notes that I keep on my computer that I can easily control F if I'm having trouble either finding something or remember where something is. But I wanted to use that a little bit of a gauge as to how I was doing with the like memorizing the content. I don't know if it's because I know that my notes are there to lean on, so I hesitate, but I feel like I know nothing. So, not a great feeling. I am starting to get into some stuff though that I am a little bit more familiar with. So, what was I into yesterday? Technician role on contraceptives, I believe. Yeah, emergency contraceptives. So once I get into the medical devices, I'm a little bit more familiar with those to a certain point. Now, familiar to the point where I understand what they are and kind of what they do, but as far as demonstrating them. So I'm actually supposed to have a class right now. It's about 1:20 in the afternoon. And it looks like or according to Twitter and Down Detector, there is a massive Zoom outage. I'm not sure when this originally started. However, it's basically saying the link can't be reached. Everybody's having trouble with it. I haven't seen anything officially yet from Zoom itself. However, Down Detector, which is kind of where you check when things go down. I know that was a bad explanation, but we're up to, looks like about almost 3,000 reports of being down. Now, I was actually able to get onto the Zoom link for class via Outlook on my phone. It did spin a little bit, but it did eventually let me in. So I'm not sure. Not great when I'm supposed to have a final tomorrow. Hopefully they get it fixed by tomorrow. Apparently we're gonna come back at around 2 o'clock, but I'm gonna study, I guess, for the time being, and hopefully we're able to get in so that we don't need to reschedule the rest of the class. And what's sad is I think we're basically down to like our group presentations, and that's all we have left. So like I really don't want to have a class tomorrow afternoon when I have a final tomorrow, and hopefully this gets fixed before the final tomorrow. Although like I said, I could join from my phone. The universe just has a very funny sense of humor sometimes, and this isn't funny, but it's kind of funny actually. All right, everyone. So just an update. We ended up using Teams. My very first time using Teams. Somewhat similar in terms of interface and all of that, but seemed to work okay. But yeah, looks like Zoom is back up. I just tried the website again and it looks like it's working, so that's great. What a crazy afternoon. I don't really have anything else to say about that other than just a crazy afternoon. I want to show you these clips that I got. So I have to wear my student ID as my name tag while I'm in lab. I'm going to just cover it up. This is my student ID that's in here. And then I bought like a bunch of these plastic things. But this is what I wanted to show you. So I found a bunch of these on Amazon actually. They're just little fun little clippy things. So the way they work is you guys have probably figured out where I go anyways. So it clips to you. This one's more of like probably a nurse one. It's got the stethoscope on it. It's got a pill bottle on it, thermometer, stuff like that. Almost a nurse or a doctor. But this is the funny one. So I do just want to end off with a little bit of reflection on the last couple weeks, just because it's been a very, very heavy semester, as I said it would probably be. The exams have been going well, at least the ones that I've gotten back. I've gotten everything that I've done so far back besides one, which I knew was going to take them a while to market. Always does with the computer stuff. So I don't know how I did. The only thing is, during that exam, so many things went wrong for me personally. It wasn't the fault of the exam. I knew what I was doing. I was just struggling with the technology. I used to use a specific type of software called a cloud mounter to mount the virtual desktop to send stuff to my actual desktop to print it out. Because at first we were able to redirect our printer using their software. That stopped working, I think, at the start of this semester. I don't even remember when it stopped working. We've had it basically the whole semester where we've had to do a Microsoft print to PDF. So that stopped working, and then so they wanted us to, there's a way you can download. My issue with this download thing that I don't like about it is that for some reason, a lot of the times when I was to move it into the folder that I would use to find it on the download button to actually download it. This probably doesn't even make any sense. It would I'd have to refresh the desktop every time I did that, and it was like, I was ready to throw something against the wall using that. They do have internet access to our, system that we use through school. So I was able to access through that, through, the OneDrive that we use, and then go onto the OneDrive on my computer and use it. I've been using that actually so that I can take my notes off of my Windows laptop and put it onto my Mac, because I prefer using my Mac whenever I can. During the exam, this thing all of a sudden just didn't want to work anymore. It wouldn't show up, or it was taking forever. So I decided to use a download thing in the end, and it worked. And also, I made a stupid mistake during the exam. I missed one checkbox that costed me probably 30 or 40 minutes worth of time. That was fun. And part of it, I think, was we hadn't really been shown how to fix that. Like, I had an idea of where I had to go to fix it, but I just wasn't clicking off the right box. So every time I would go to reprint this one label, the one thing that I needed was missing. So that's as much detail as I'm going to get into with it, but that's what happened essentially. So I don't know. I'm hoping I had all the documentation I needed. I wasn't sure on the reprint because I hadn't done one before which order was going to print out. So then I had named it wrong because I guessed wrong. So that exam, I just struggled constantly with technical issues and like not even like technical issues on like the end of the desktop or scroll or anything. It was just my personal, mixing a checkbox basically, which I knew I had to do from the practice one. It's the one note I missed in writing my notes because it was an open book exam, so I was allowed to take my own notes in. I missed saying, don't forget to check off always print these instructions. So, that sucked. But the rest of the exam was very straightforward. It was fine. I'm not too worried about it. I'm hoping it went okay. I never feel perfect after doing some of like those types of exams, like where you're filling prescriptions, because you just never know. Like in the moment, everything feels correct. And then you kind of sit there and think about it afterwards and you're like, wait, did I do this one thing? Did I do this other thing? Oh my goodness, I messed up so badly. And then you get everything back and you're like, oh, I didn't mess it up. I thought I had messed it up. I had my legislation final. I'd say out of all the finals this semester was the one I was probably one of the most concerned about. Number one, the class. I didn't quite pass it before writing the final exam just because it was worth a little bit more because it was a comprehensive exam. It was preparing us for when we write the jurisprudence exam, which is the provincial legislation exam that we do kind of in that year where we're writing all of our boards and all of that, which from me will be 2026 if I stay on track to finish. I think second year is going to be a lot more difficult. I'll talk about that a little later though. What I will say is that this semester has been extremely heavy. It's heavy enough with just the products classes on its own and adding in the lab and the advanced computer stuff. It was a lot. And even though it was like technically fewer classes this semester compared to the first semester, it was probably heavier overall. And the thing is like, these guys are a lot like third and fourth year university, where you're not only being thrown a bunch of new information at a very heavy load, but you're also being expected to be able to apply all of that information. So you do have to understand the material to a certain degree in order to be able to apply it. And that's not just in the competency part of it, but that's in the understanding as well. I like that kind of stuff in a way because it does make you think a lot, and I like I like when I can reasonably like logically work my way through something. I actually don't mind that kind of problem solving. And then when you actually get something right in that case and you've never seen it before, it's a huge, like, it's awesome because you're like, oh, well, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's how you figure that out, kind of thing. So that's what I do really enjoy about that part of it. But it's difficult when you're just trying to stay afloat and learn the information. To then be expected to apply it like that it's a step, and it's a big giant step. I don't know how the people who are just freshly out of high school are doing it because, like I said, it took me a long time to figure out how to study like that in university, and I was just starting to get my finger on it a little bit at the end. Now, I was sick at the end, so that's why my marks didn't reflect it, but I was starting to figure out what they were looking for. All of my exams in third and fourth year of biochem, like in the actual biochem classes, they were all short answer. So you were basically given a question prompt, and it was like, show me what you know kind of thing out of that. Like, you had to pull it out of nothing, basically. It's been a ginormous gift to be able to almost feel like I've been given a second shot. So when I got sick, I didn't think there was a chance that I'd ever work again, let alone possibly have a career. I thought that was done. That part of it was a lot of the grieving process that I went through, honestly. I'm not as worried about the must pass, honestly, because I was able to do that tutorial sheet without even, I didn't review anything. I'm just like, let's just try this and see how it goes. Let's see how much I remember. And when I get to the tutorial, if there's stuff I messed up on, I know I gotta focus on that. And honestly, like, the couple of things I messed up on was one was a question I'd never seen before. I had the right intention with it, I just didn't quite finish it. So I think I got the answer, and then I needed to subtract that answer from the original question. So, those little things. I'm not as concerned about that, but I mean, technically it was still wrong. It's just, it's like, okay, I was on the right track for it. I knew how to approach the question. Maybe there would have been something given to me for that. Now, it would have been a 90, probably not. That's what I need to get, but that's kind of what we're looking at for it. There are a couple other things, though, that we were told that we have to review that weren't in the tutorial sheet, so hoping that I'm able to find some practice with those, because I don't think those are going to have practice with the lab questions that I was given unless we were given them in that section, because we use a different thing when we're doing it in the lab. It's just some of the memorization stuff, and actually I did quite well with remembering the conversions, so things are looking okay. I would like to get this on my first shot because this exam is in person, and to go back up to Saskatoon for a must-pass math final, I would not be very impressed with myself if I was to pass everything else and have that just be the only thing. Okay, so now that we're back, don't mind me, I'm just grabbing my phone. I made notes. I normally don't make notes for like anything. Even when I made sit down videos, I didn't make notes. It was just kind of whatever came to the top of my head. However, this time I did make notes because these kind of videos that are a little bit more heady now can be a little bit harder for me to actually get across what I'm trying to say. And yeah, it does come in the moment, but there are certain things that I want to touch on in this particular kind of self-reflection that I haven't had the chance to touch on yet. A little bit of why I experienced so much exhaustion was because I didn't start soon enough on studying for finals and continuing to keep up with everything as I went, but I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Why self-reflection? Like, this is really difficult when you've kind of gone through the process that I have. The self doesn't really exist, and I don't really talk about that, so I'm not going to get into it in this video. But self-reflection is important, and it actually hits on one of the NAPRA competencies. So I think going forward, I'm going to be trying to incorporate these NAPRA competencies wherever I can and wherever I can show you to not only practice this, because I often have to do it for assignments, but it kind of shows you how I'm trying to make this video a little bit more professional, in my opinion. So I'm going to start actually including these competencies in the video as well. NAPRA Competency 2.1.1. Engage in regular self-reflection to recognize personal competence limits and identify areas for professional learning and improvement. So as much as I think it's important to self-reflect professionally, I think it's also really important to be able to self-reflect personally. I mean, to the best of your ability. And like I said, this gets really difficult when you really don't have a self anymore, but different topic for a different time. I did this by actually asking ChatGPT if it could come up with some good self-reflection questions for a student at the end of an academic year. That's basically what I asked it. I don't remember exactly what I asked it, but it was along those lines. Now, some of these questions I did come up with myself, but just for disclaimer purposes or important purposes, I did use ChatGPT to come up with some of these because some of them I didn't think about. Again, I'm just going to be reading. I'm going to be trying to keep this as close to the camera as possible, but yeah, if you see my eyes drifting, it's just because I've already written these answers out. So how would I rate my first year? And I would say 100 out of 10. Yes, this is a stressful program with the must pass exams and how much content is thrown at you, but I am so thankful to be able to be in such a wonderful program and with such an amazing group of people. Our class is very close despite having only spent a limited time together in person. I have closer relationships with this group than many of the people I met in university just due to the nature of the program and the fact that we're like together all of the time. It's nice being in a cohort where you're taking pretty much all the same classes as everybody else. That means you're dealing with the same exam schedule, you're dealing with the same assignments at the same time. You know, you're not having to explain, okay, I can't, a midterm there isn't great because these other classes, but nobody else is in those other classes. And so I really like that part of it, that you can really, really share that communalization of pain that happens when you're going through a very stressful program. And it's something I've never had the opportunity to really experience before with another group of people and have that group be small enough and that you're actually taking all of the same classes. Even though in university you might share a major with several with everybody that is in your core group of major classes, the electives that kind of surround that are often very different. So you're still not in the same schedule. With this program, everybody's pretty much in the same courses unless they're not taking as many classes for whatever reason or they've had to repeat classes that are prerequisites or whatever. So that has been really nice. My biggest accomplishment this year, all of the must pass exams, I would say every single one of them. And it's because it requires us to score a 90% or higher in the first year. Math has never really been a strong subject for me, but thankfully the math in pharmacy is pretty basic. Proportional analysis is pretty simple. Algebra and dimensional analysis is something I'm quite comfortable with from my degree. One of the biggest things actually is having a strong chemistry background has been a huge, huge benefit for me. Scoring a 90% is not easy on an exam, especially when it's only worth 15 marks overall. That's what our finals were out of for math. You get a mark and a half of basically wiggle room. So it's basically a question and then like one question maybe, and then half a point for documentation issues. That's all the leeway that you get. Not only did I manage to do very well in my first must pass exam, I didn't get 100% on the first one, but I think I ended up with only getting half a mark off. So I think it was like a 96%. These are the only marks you'll ever hear me talk about, or any of the other must pass exams. If you're in the program, ever find out you know what someone's gotten, at least minimum, because you need a certain mark in order to continue. I haven't shared any of my actual like final grades and I won't be. I had a little bit worse of a semester the second semester, but honestly, like it wasn't horrible. And like for the difficulty of the program, I would have paid for marks like that in university. What subject or project did I enjoy the most and why? So subject, it's honestly hard to pick just one. What is really nice about the program is that most of it is pharmacy focused. We do have classes like anatomy and physiology and communications that is not pharmacy focused, but they are either building up information you need to know or developing critical skills that you have to be able to have as a technician. Most challenging, besides math in the first semester, legislation was the most difficult for me. And it's not like the math is difficult, but having to get a certain score on a particular exam really does mess with your brain. Legislation is also a dry subject, and although my instructor did the best job they could have possibly done at making it interesting, it is just a lot of information to learn. And I feel pretty good about where I ended up in that class with compared to like, okay, if you do well in this, you're probably going to have an okay time with your jurisprudence. That's another reason why I was putting a lot of pressure on myself because I'm just like, okay, I need to do well. I need to understand this because yeah, this exam is important and I need these credits, but where it really matters is later on when I'm paying for an exam that I only want to write once. That's where it matters. And that's kind of how I feel about the PEBCs as well. It's not just passing classes to get credits, to get the credentials. It's I need to know this information so that I can do well on the board exams, which is where it really matters when you're paying the big dollars and you only want to have the stress of writing the exam once, basically. So then ChatGPT actually generated this question for me. So what would I do differently? If I could go back and change something, is there anything I would do differently? First semester, I don't think I really could have had much better of a first semester than I did. I was very, very happy with it. And overall, like, my average was really high. I mean, some of that was that there were some classes I was able to piggyback off of my degree on. Second semester, though, I don't know whether it's the winter, the fact that the semester seems longer, or like what it is, but like the second semester was a lot of information and I got a little bit behind. I will admit it. I got behind and it was not good. So what would I do differently is keeping on top of the content in semester 2. I don't think it's possible to absorb everything, but doing a bit more studying every single day would have helped overall to do better and not have classes get neglected. Because I spent so much time focusing on the products classes, I had one other class that was a management course that I honestly have to admit was not my favorite topic. I found it quite dry. I found it, I don't know. Unless you're interested in becoming a manager for a pharmacy, there's just a lot of stuff that we talk about in there that unless you would be managing or like owning a pharmacy with somebody, you're never going to have to deal with those kind of things. And so because of that, my brain was just like kept shoving it off, kept like just putting it off and all of that. And I'd rather look at the products classes because, that's relevant. I can use that in other parts of my day, like I just felt it was totally irrelevant. And so my management final was the only one I was disappointed with. I did okay in the class in the end because like it was like a lot of the mark had already been decided by the time we wrote the final, but it just could have been so much better overall if I had done better on the final. So I was really upset. And I felt okay when I was writing the exam, but I submitted it and got my mark, and I'm like, oh crap, that's not great. And then to end off this video, because I'm sure it's getting ridiculously long by this point, what am I most looking forward to about second year, and what am I most nervous about? So the thing I'm most looking forward to is more about compounding. So the pharmacy I work at right now, we can only do very basic compounds. So think of something like mixing a cream with an ointment or a cream with a cream or making a basic mouthwash. I will get to learn how to compound capsules and suppositories as part of this program, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. Actually, one of the things that gives me a lot of, like, I don't know, zen on TikTok is when I get onto like compounding TikTok and like they're showing in like sped up how they make a suppository or how they make capsules. It just mesmerizes me and like fascinates me. So I'm looking forward to that. I am a little bit scared about compounding, to be honest with you too, but it's just because my technique is not where it needs to be with that. So I'm hoping to get a bit more practice over the summer and then learn how to be a little bit more clean with it. And then hopefully by the time we have our labs, because it'll be the end of next year, by the time I'm actually doing in-person labs for that, I'm hoping things will get better. My dexterity in some things is not great, so it can make some of these more intensive things a little bit more difficult. I'm a little bit worried about like things like making IVs and stuff just because I feel like you need to have so much dexterity to work with like IV bags and all of that. So, what am I the most nervous about second year besides what I just said? It's the must pass exams. So, they go from 90% to 100% from what I understand. And although I managed to do this for my in-person labs, like the must pass for the lab component. So I know it's possible. The pressure of having to do this several times next year is definitely something I'm nervous about for sure. Again, just the stress of having to get that certain mark and the fact that there's like no wiggle room at all. I feel like it would be so much better. I understand the idea of having the must pass exams and your accuracy, because like if you're in practice that you need to be at 100%. Here's the thing about that. If you're a technician, you always have to have a registered pharmacist with you at all times. That's the way the current legislation is. So going by current legislation, if am working on a prescription and I am just unsure, I can do the math and then I'd be like, okay, I'm really struggling with this. Can you figure this out? Like, I feel like this should be a requirement for the pharmacist, not for me. And they'll be like, well, what happens later on if, technicians can work by themselves? In my opinion, let's say the legislation does change in the future where a technician can be working by themselves. Number one, that should require extra training for a technician to be able to work by themselves. It's something, and it shouldn't be forced extra training either. Like, if you want a job where you're working by yourself without a pharmacist there, that should be something that you should be required to go and do the extra continuing education, like what pharmacists have to do every time their prescribing gets increased or they're wanting to explore and do more clinical pharmacy. It shouldn't be something that's automatically granted to every registered technician. I think that should be required to have extra training or all of that. And it should be something that you want to do, not something that you have to do. So I understand having this whole accuracy thing, and it does speed up the whole process and all of that. But because everything technically has to touch the pharmacist at some point anyways, if there's something that's really off about something, it should immediately flag the pharmacist that you're working with. It just doesn't make any sense to me as to why this is so particular. It's either that or they have a specific requirement, like they have so many math questions on the boards. Okay, here's another idea that I had that they could kind of get around this. Or I guess prove that the calculations to accuracy thing that they have. It's called zero tolerance for calculation errors is what it is. In the PEBCs, what they should have is so many math questions and basically treat it like a must pass. You have to get so many of these math questions correct in order to pass the MCQ. I don't know. I feel like I'm giving them ideas to make my life harder, but that's what I would do, honestly, with that. Because, yeah, you want to make sure your students are ready to take the exam, but, I just feel like these must-pass exams are just adding unnecessary stress and slowing people down. I really do. But, I mean, you are given remedial, but, 100%, really? That's it for this video. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. It's probably going to be ridiculously long. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching my first year. I'm going to end the content next week with my reflection from in-person labs. I originally was going to do a reflection for the practicum as well, but I couldn't figure out a way that I could really talk about my thoughts about it without with what I felt like was breaking confidentiality around the whole thing. And getting into too many details about just overall everything. So I've decided to just drop that part. I was able to do a self-reflection for that particular class as part of the requirements. So, and I can't even share that because it's got a bunch of detailed information in it. The only thing I'll say with the practicum is that it was fine. It was just a little bit too basic, in my opinion, for somebody who's got pharmacy experience. That's the one sentence I'm going to use to sum it up. And that I kind of wish that there was two different options based upon whether that you had pharmacy experience of, let's say, so many hours, and then one where you didn't have any experience in a pharmacy at all that was a lot more basic. That's the only thing I'm going to say about it. It wasn't a terrible experience. It just didn't feel like I got as much out of it as what I could have. So with that being said, thanks for watching. If you're interested in following this journey from whether it be pharmacy technician and all of that, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, all of those YouTube things. I'll be back again making content in the fall for this particular stuff. But I'm hoping throughout the summer that I actually am able to share a little bit more of personal things. So I'm hoping to expand a bit more on gluten-free stuff. I don't really know how I'm going to do that yet, but I would like to be able to do a little bit more talking about being gluten-free because, and I'm going to talk about this in my first video with this, but being gluten-free lately has gotten even more difficult because I've gotten a lot more sensitive. So I kind of want to talk a little bit more about that. And it's a part that, people who are close to me know about because if you've ever had a meal with me, you'll know I talk about it when it becomes relevant. But for those of you who are on YouTube, you probably don't know that about me. I've talked a little bit about it, but not like continuously or anything like that. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm gonna focus on for the summer. And it'll give me something to bring together as well when I'm back and, dealing with school again and all of that as well. Some of the challenges that come along with that because it's definitely challenging. But yeah, so thanks for watching, everyone. Hope to see you again in the next one. Bye, everyone.